warm welcome to another edition of To The Point. The upper house of the parliament, that is Rajya Sabha, will soon get its new deputy chairperson. What is the actual role of a deputy chairperson and what is the kind of difference this post brings to the upper house? Joining me now is veteran parliamentarian Professor P.J. Kurian, who has just retired as the deputy chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. I welcome you, sir, to the point.
Thank you. Thank you.
People say that veteran parliamentarians don't retire. It's just a change of position for them. So what is it for you?
Because in politics, we don't retire. Even if you don't have a position, you will be active in politics. So I'll be active in politics. Why should I retire? I can give more contributions still. And so I hope to continue in politics.
So when you say that you're going to continue to be active in politics, so does it mean that you're looking at contesting maybe the general elections, or in what form are we going to see you active in politics?
Politics doesn't mean election only. See, yes, you can contest election also, but you can be active in the party. You can also be active in other social activities. There are lot of areas where one can work. See, a politician need not always contest election, become MLA or MP. You can serve the country in many other ways. There are so many challenges in the country which we have to tackle. We can join that, you see.
But Professor Kurian, there were a whole lot of reports that the Kerala Congress, there was a lot of discontent amongst various young MLAs over there because of the fact that you were trying to seek another term.
See, the first thing is that, of course, there is a demand from the youngsters all throughout the country. There is a feeling that the old generation should gradually retire and new generation should come. I welcome that. So I welcome that proposition that the youth will become. They are the future of the country. But you cannot have all the posts filled by the youth because you need experience also. So it should be a mixture of the experienced people and the youth. That is what I am thinking about it. So in demanding that the elderly people should shift or they should be replaced, no harm in demanding that. But those who take decision should ensure that
there should be a good mix of both young and old.
A mix of both. That is in the interest of the country. So that is for those who take decision. They should be responsible to take such decisions.
Young MLAs from Kerala Congress said that let not Rajya Sabha become an old age home, and that comment was really not in a bad, I mean that was not in a good taste at all.
That comment is in a bad taste. I fully agree with you, and I disagree with that also, because see, the function of the Rajya Sabha, what is that? See, in Lok Sabha, members pass certain bills, certain legislations. Lok Sabha MPs have constitutional interest of the constituency. They want to win the next election. So they will have their own point of view, which may say perhaps be contradicting with the national interest, which may, because of their constituency interest. So such bills may be passed which are not good in the national interest. So it is for the Rajya Sabha, who are not worried about a next election, who should have an objective look, objective examination of the bills, and if necessary correct the anomalies that has cropped into the bill in the Rajya Sabha. Right. Therefore, Rajya Sabha, we need experienced people. Only experienced people can scrutinize and make the correction. Therefore, Rajya Sabha is a corrective body. Rajya Sabha is not like Lok Sabha. It has a corrective job also. Correcting the mistakes, if any, of the decision taken in the Lok Sabha. Therefore, it can only be done by experienced people, senior people, of course, aged people also. You see, aging is not a bad thing. By aging, you get lot of experience.
You said that the MPs inside Lok Sabha, of course, have some electoral compulsions because every 5 years they will have to go back to the people with some kind of a mandate, and that may not be in the national interest, you said. But when it comes to Rajya Sabha, we don't see less of politics happening. Rajya Sabha is equally political, and you see the way the dynamics play out. It's no less than Lok Sabha, it seems.
Yes, Rajya Sabha is also equally political. I agree, and no doubt about it. But Rajya Sabha MPs will look at the bills and the legislations in a different angle.
Okay.
No doubt they will look at it in a different angle. They have politics, there will be political consideration that nobody can avoid. But Lok Sabha MPs, I was in the Lok Sabha, I know, you cannot blame them. They have the electoral compulsions before them. Naturally, they have to think of the next election. And so, the stand they take will to some extent will be governed and guided by the electoral consideration. Whereas in the Rajya Sabha, it will not happen. Therefore, Rajya Sabha MPs can look at issues at a different angle. And that is happening also, even though there is politics. That is why many decisions which were taken in the Lok Sabha, we have amended. Bills passed in the Lok Sabha, we have again sent back with amendments. That is happening. You see, so many bills passed in the Lok Sabha are pending in the Rajya Sabha.
But this pattern is a collective pattern, whether you talk about the government, whether you talk about the collective opposition, and the sole responsibility lies on every individual parliamentarian who is there inside the House. Will you not admit to the fact that there is a certain decadence or a decline in the parliamentary value system?
I agree with you. Number one, see the caliber of the members who used to come to the parliament in those times. You see, immediately after independence, who came? Most of those who sacrificed for the freedom. Immediately after the independence, those who came to the parliament are those who fought for the country, who were ready to sacrifice their entire life for the country. They came with a lot of experience of sacrifice. At that time, the caliber of members was very high. The standard, their approach, the value system. But over the years, the value system has degenerated. Values, see, and that is in everywhere in the society, not only among the parliament. You should know that parliamentarians are only from the country. They are cross-section. You get an MP from the people. When there is a degeneration everywhere, in every section of the people, there is a degeneration. That is reflected among the parliamentarians also.
But Professor Kurian, the degeneration of values, are we to blame the first past post the ballot system which we have in the country, which lays so much of emphasis on the numeric dimension rather than other things inside the House? Whom do we blame for this?
Numerical dimension is also contributing for that. But then constitution makers, they have discussed it at length, and they have found, see, for a country like India, with a lot of diversities, different sets of people, number of religions, culture, languages, they all found that the present system, parliamentary system, this kind of election is better, is best. Of course, this system has its own disadvantages. There are disadvantages. But if you go to some other system, they will have more disadvantages. So, you cannot have a system which is absolutely perfect, having no disadvantages. So, between different systems, you have to choose one which is giving least trouble to the country, which is most advantaged country. That I believe even now,
right.
It is the present system. And the present system has, yes, I agree with you, this numerical number, and also especially the present position of say disqualification, and you have to obey the whip. See, even if a member doesn't like, he has to obey the whip, and therefore he has to go by the party whip. You know, in the parliament, what happened? That's what happened. Most of the members have a particular view.
But if the whip is issued, then
but they are not able to act accordingly, because the party will issue a whip, and they have to go by the whip. And actually, the member votes against his own will. You understand?
But don't you think that this...
So, I am of the view that this act of disqualification, see, members' disqualification act should be revisited. In my view, it is doing more harm than good.
So you mean to say that the parties should do away with the whip system?
Because members should be given freedom to vote according to their conscience. Today it is not there. It is see, as per the constitution, elected member can according to his will, isn't it? There is nothing which constitution says that you go by party whip. I think when the constitution was framed, party was not even included there, partyism. So constitution doesn't say that. But here, MPs, in spite of what they feel is against, they have to vote in a different way.
Another anomaly, I would say, is the number of sittings which have reduced considerably, where in the initial years, we saw the Indian Republic having 125 to 140 sittings a year. And those were times, simple days, when you didn't have regular trains, you didn't have regular flights, you didn't have regular modes of communication. Now, when technology has made things easier, we find lesser number of sittings as pathetic as 65 to 75 days.
Year by year, the number of days of sitting decreasing. And so many bills, see, so many important bills, so many important legislations are pending. It is at that time. And government also, see, for government also, it appears happy. They are happy that there are less number of sittings. And see,
with more number of sittings, the ministers will be grilled.
The anomaly I am telling you, in the parliament, the first hour is question hour. Usually first hour is question hour. In the Rajya Sabha, of course, there is a change. What is question hour? Question hour is an hour wherein any member can ask questions to the minister, ask clarification, and if necessary grill the minister. He can grill the minister. The minister or the government is becoming accountable to the member or the house through the question hour. And this question hour on almost all days will be cancelled due to disruption. Who are the losers? Actually, the members and the country are the losers. Government will be, ministers, at least the ministers will be happy because they
will not be grilled.
They have no problem. They will not be grilled. They will not have to prepare. So that is one thing. So that is gone. Second, bills. So many bills are. Why? Because number of sittings are less. And even when there is sittings, there is only disruption. Nothing happened. Therefore, reducing the number of days of sitting is an absolutely wrong decision. Government should go back to the earlier days of at least 125 days of sitting. I fully endorse with you.
Another thing which we see, and off the record when you talk to the politicians, they say that, you know, this whole bit of digitalizing and telecasting of the proceedings inside the house, they in a way inspire negatively the politicians to cause a hangama and the ruckus inside the house. Will you agree with that?
I am fully in agreement. I am telling you, if the telecasting, simultaneous telecasting, live telecasting can be stopped, half of the hangama will be reduced.
What will happen to people like us in Rajya Sabha TV and Lok Sabha TV then, sir?
No, I am only saying live telecast. What I am saying, you record it.
Okay, and then later on show.
Later on, half an hour, 1 year, not only that. I say it because sometimes members utter unparliamentary words. See, a member cannot abuse another member without giving notice, and there is a rule for that. Sometimes it happens. A member cannot abuse or criticize a member of the other house.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes members will use unparliamentary words. No, they use it off the cuff, not deliberately. All these are off the cuff remarks made by them. But immediately it is telecast. And after telecast, the chair expunges it. What is the use of expansion when it is already telecast? Therefore, my suggestion is a device should be, something should be devised. That you record it, then.
So we record, expunge and then telecast. That should be the process.
That should be the procedure. If that can be done, that will be better. And second thing is also, this hangama and unruly behavior, they will not be telecast. They can also be stopped. If you stop telecasting, half of the people will go and sit there because, you know, even though the chair doesn't like it, even though you don't like it, for a particular, say for example, I will tell you a classic example. say in the last session, the Andhra, my friends in Andhra, they fought for special
The
status
special
for
package,
Andhra.
yeah.
And my friends in AIDMK, they fought for the Kaveri water board to be established. And they came to the well, they shouted slogans. I tell you, when it's telecast, everybody in Andhra or in Tamil Nadu, they appreciate. They feel, the public there feel, because I have spoken to many people. I know many people in Tamil Nadu. See, Tamil Nadu, many people, they are all happy that their members came and fought to the extent they can. They fought. See, because they are fighting, we could not transact some business. That is a different matter. But they feel their genuine case has been highlighted by this process of coming to the well and shouting slogans. Therefore, by coming to the well and shouting slogans, these MPs get a mileage.
Yeah.
They become more popular. And if you can stop telecasting that, well, then MPs may not take that much interest in coming to the well and disruption. Yeah, therefore,
But you've made a very important point that all these, the regional parties, the way they are coming up, whether it is TMC, whether it is AIDMK, or it is the Andhra parties, they all are coming up with their own ideas, what their people want, and they want to bring that on the national front. And what we have seen as a pattern is just a two-party dominance. Either it is Congress or BJP, and never have we seen a pattern where so many multi-regional parties have come up and they've come up with their conflicting interests. Now, how do you evolve the parliamentary system in a setup like this?
No, but you cannot say it is a wrong system, because
it's not a wrong system.
I'll tell you.
But how do you evolve the system?
Because you see, the point is regional aspiration. See,
of course, that has to be accommodated.
You see, regional aspiration is natural, and that should be there. You see the Tamil feeling, the Andhra feeling, or Malayali feeling, or the feeling of the Orissa or other states. They have their own, because each state has a problem particular to that state. This is the whole problem. India is a vast country, different states, and I tell you, India, it is it's not like a country. It is some kind. It is a federation. It's a union of states. You know that. The problem of Malayalis is, even though Malayalis and Tamilians are separated by the Western Ghats, problem of Malayalis are entirely different from the problem of the Tamilians.
Absolutely.
Or Andhra Pradesh, for that matter. Therefore, all these regional aspirations should be highlighted, and they should have their forum. They should have their place. They should have their place. Therefore, what we should do is, I will tell you, what we should do is, as India is a union or federation, likewise, the political system also develop in such a way as union or federation.
Yes, because the regional aspirations, of course, should be highlighted. But how do you evolve a political framework or a parliamentary framework so that it doesn't get stalled, it doesn't get disruptive, and at the same time we are able to address
I tell you, it will naturally develop. It will naturally develop.
Through dialogue, discussion, and
it is happening also. You look at that. You see, the previous government or the UPA government, what was it? It was only a combination. It was only a union of parties. And now, of course, the present government, Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi has got a majority single party. Even then, it is a coalition of many parties. So now see, look at the opposition. They are trying to unite. Therefore, due to political compulsions, these parties will have dialogue, and they will arrive at some consensus, some kind of a federal system. Political federality will develop.
Okay.
And that will naturally develop. We need not do anything for that. There is no need of any legislation for that. It will naturally develop, because it has to develop. That is what I am saying. So it will happen.
So as a veteran parliamentarian who is just retired and who is not going to retire from the political life, let me ask you one question. What is your hunch for the 2019 elections? Is a federal front going to come up?
Well,
or a third front, or whatever name you want to give.
I cannot predict that. I cannot predict that now. But I know one thing. 2019 election will be a tough fight. It will be a tough fight for both sides. That is going to be
For all the parties, you are saying,
for yes,
including Congress.
Yes, because it will be, I think from Congress side, it will be a political front, opposition front. Most of the parties will be there, I believe. And in the NDA side also, along with BJP, there will be other parties. It will not be an easy walkover or easy fight. It will be a tough fight for both.
But sir, is it not a very unfortunate situation for Congress that Congress is not in any of the key positions, the key top positions, and also the post of the deputy chairperson, I think, will be lost to Congress. Since 1977, we saw Ramnivas Mirdha being at the post, and now we see that Congress will at all not be in that post. So is it not something which is very unfortunate?
No, you can't say now because Congress is in dialogue with other parties. Maybe deputy chairperson may be with the Congress also. It can be like that also. You cannot say it is not there. But opposition together is trying for retaining it in the opposition side.
But will you not admit to the fact that Congress has lost its sheen being the main opposition party? Like till about last year, it was saying that Congress probably might bind all other parties. But now Congress has lost that glue which is going to bind all the regional parties.
See, in democracy you cannot say like this. I tell you, after emergency, what happened in 1977, Congress has lost all through North India. Then after the 1985 election, 1985 election, BJP had only 2 members in the Lok Sabha. So you cannot predict anything. If Congress is having only 40 plus members, you can't say it has lost the all sheen, because in a democracy, being a democracy, each party can fight, come back, and people will elect a government which they want at that point of time. So I don't think the chance of Congress is lost.
But despite Rahul Gandhi being in a central position now, he becoming the party president, your young MLAs write on Facebook that Congress is a party of consortium. It's a party where self-interest is more paramount than the party interest. How do you respond to that?
No, I don't say that. But Congress is a party, you see, of an Indian party where it reflects the Indian system, Indian way of thinking. That is, what is India? Is a diversity, whether all religion, all caste, all people, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, are Indians. We all say Indian. One may be Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or that, but we are all proud of being Indians, and we are Indians. Likewise in Congress, all sections are there, and naturally some sectional interest will come there. See, that is not a negative point. See, you should see it as a positive point. Even I would say difference among the leaders, different views of the leaders, that shows a party democracy. If you say that everybody thinks in the same way, there is no individual interest, all party interest, that means it lacks democracy. So I am not saying it as a bane, as something bad. Different views are there, different interests are there. Yes, individual interests are also there, but all put together forms a party. It is not a cadre party like say CPM or RSS. Congress is a loose party, but that is its advantage also. Yes, at some point it is the disadvantage, but some other points it is advantage also. You see like that. Congress is what Congress is. Yeah.
Professor Kurian, we heard that you're going to come out with a book which is going to have loads of knowledge on the parliamentary system and the framework.
I have an idea of writing a book, but it will take some more time, because yet I have to get time for that.
Okay. So, because of elections coming, and since you said that you're going to be active in politics.
Because I am in active politics still.
So when do we expect the book on stands?
No, it depends. I cannot tell now, because I don't know when I will get time. I'll have to sit and write, but I want to. That is my desire.
Okay, Professor Kurian, it was a pleasure talking to you, and wish you all the best for your new innings now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that's it on this episode of To The Point. See you next time with another personality. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.